Welcome to I Could Talk to You All Day. I'm Lauren Lefkowitz, recovering workaholic, perfectionist, and people pleaser.
And I'm John Spears, emerging from playing small, getting caught up in the inertia of life, and always being on.
I Could Talk to You All Day is a show for executives and emerging leaders. This is not just another leadership podcast. We're here to talk about what it means to be a leader while also being human.
So join us for raw, vulnerable, and probably pretty funny conversations about shifting from surviving at work and home to thriving in the life you've always wanted. Let's get the conversation started.
John Spears.
Lauren Lefkowitz, how are you doing today?
I'm excited about this recording, and I'm excited about this episode's topic. And I have a new iPhone. Those are all celebrations in my life.
Oh my God, did you get the titanium one, the new one?
I got the 15 Pro.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You're
Very
so fancy.
fancy.
You're so
I know.
fancy.
I know. Yeah.
Okay, here are 3 words to describe me right now.
Go for it.
Cold. I am not hot. It is a little cold in the north where I am this week. And the other 2 words, I think I am also very excited about this episode because we've been talking about it for a while and we haven't had a chance to record for a little while. So it's great to be back with you in this setting. And in this setting being the setting we always connect, even if we're recording or not, which is on Zoom, but we have our fancy microphones on. So it makes it feel more studio-ish. And the third word that I would say is hopeful. As folks that have been listening to us for this past year, it has been a real bleepy year for both of us. Super challenging, really confrontational. And through all of that, this is maybe another word to add. Maybe there's 4 words for me, is that I was always afraid of experiencing intense pain. And that really influenced how I showed up in a lot of circumstances. And now I'm not afraid of that anymore. And it's totally liberating and freeing and light. And my God, does that feel good after a very long time of feeling heavy and chained down and like I'm carrying bricks from a million years ago.
Yeah, we have had a hard year, and we did it anyway. We did all the things. We keep finding hope. And for me, this has been a best worst kind of year, right? Like I'm finally settling into what being an entrepreneur is like, and this life full of choice and freedom and fun. And also I dug into deep therapy work this year, and I'm still in it.
Yeah.
And it's hard. And I also recognize that I wouldn't have had the capacity to do the trauma work that I'm doing now had I not done so much other work with coaches, with therapists, with alternative kind of things over the last several years. So I'm grateful to have gotten to where I am and super impatient to get to the next place.
I hear you. And it made me think about this word art that I saw on Instagram. And if you looked at my Instagram, here's what you would see on my For You page. You would see a lot about pickleball. You would see a lot about quick, healthy meals for families. You would see a lot about relationship dynamics, particularly anxious attachments, which is what I am working on healing. And you would see a lot of word art, about the universe and about all of this stuff. And it was really funny today when I was looking this morning, when I rolled out of bed, and I did the thing that we shouldn't do, which is look at our phone immediately. I saw 4 different versions of this thing, of the same word art, inspirational word art that just bombards my feed. And it was something like, this year, the universe made me strong. next year the universe is going to make you something like not happy, but like fulfilled, powerful, something like really inspiring. So inspiring, I don't remember what it said.
Next year will be blah blah blah.
Next year will be X. You just, but like no, but it made me think about what you just said. Is like I'm eager for the next thing. Like and sometimes when we're in it, it just feels like it's going to be forever, and it's really hard to see past the next hour or the next day. And I am just really convinced that if you like keep on doing the work, keep on showing up, things are going to change. And keeping on continuing to take responsibility for your actions, for yourself. It's not just hope and like frou kind of whatever. It's like taking responsibility, showing up, having grace, loving yourself. Like stick it out, keep on going, keep on showing up, keep on getting in the arena. And it might feel real crappy doing that and exhausting and tiring, but it's worth it.
I love this concept of getting to know a person through what shows up on their For You feeds. Because yours describes you pretty well.
I mean, the algorithm knows me. Like it has me down.
Same. Yeah. On Instagram, the algorithm knows to show me dogs.
Mm-hmm.
Funny, like unexpected endings to things, like a video that seems to be going along and then something like escalates quickly or something odd happens. Misogyny, addressing misogyny, not men telling me that I'm not being a woman correctly. And then the like occasional Brene Brown or Brene Brown-esque pieces. So that describes me to a T. Interestingly, I later joined TikTok, much later, and TikTok shows me dogs and crystals. Which also tracks for like where I am right in this moment.
Oh, also Brene Brown is all over my feed. That woman is, and I eat it up. Like I am like, it's so funny. I was talking to someone about this the other day about like how easy it is for me to cry and express emotion. Like I will literally be in meetings and like one meeting ends and I have to like hop on, and like in the 30 seconds between me clicking leave and join, like tears are coming down. And so I just, I feel also liberated to share this stuff. We've talked so much, and maybe this is actually a part of our conversation today. Like we put on these personas or these masks or whatever, and we put it on to like hide stuff, who we really are.
Yeah.
And part of this is embarrassing for me to share that like I'm a crier and that like I'm a COO and I'm like a badass leader, but I also have lots of emotions and sometimes they're hard for me to deal with. And I cry very easily. And as a 43-year-old man, it's sometimes hard for me to admit that, right? Whatever you want to say about that. Like I'm not debating whether I should or should not be having this experience. But it also just feels really good to be seen. And for me to say, you know what, if you don't like that or you have strong opinions about that, I'm not for you. Like we're not meant for each other. And if you're okay with that and want to explore that and are interested in that, like great. And it just, it's like feels really liberating. I guess we were talking about this earlier. Like I just feel very liberated at this stage of my life or this phase of this year of my life and that experience, because I just give 0 F's about certain things.
Yeah. Yeah. I am the opposite in that I will do everything I can to fight the tears for a very long time. There's like no part of me that's like, just go ahead and cry, Lauren. I am there with that for everybody else. And I hold myself back. And also I've learned to let emotion come through. Like my level of participation in the expression of emotions has increased a billionfold in the
Yeah.
last couple of years. And also, I do not have the capability to get off of one call, cry for 30 seconds, and get on the next call, because not only does my face turn red for the rest of the day when I cry, and so like whoever else I talk to is like, what's wrong? Are you okay? But also, like, once the tears start coming, there's no like shut off valve for them. Like, they're going to be there for a while. So I've learned to like sort of cry manage a little bit. But that's part of the masking, right? That's part of that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about, in honor of a Halloween released episode and in honor of authenticity and vulnerability, we're going to be talking today about the masks we wear, how they appear, and why we choose them, and you know what you and I have chosen to let go of. We both, when we met each other, we both were wearing like very shiny masks.
Oh,
and
I had mask upon mask upon mask upon mask. You take one mask off, it's like a Russian doll of masks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So take us back, John Spears, to the first time that you realized what masking was and that you were doing it.
Gosh, that's such a good question. Oh man, it's really deep. I think I realized, or I came to understand masks at a super young age. I mean, I don't think I really fully realized or accepted the fact that I was gay until 33. But I remember very young knowing something was different about me. I probably couldn't have named it or labeled it gay or same-sex attraction or anything like that. But I knew something was different. I knew I felt different than other people. I knew that there was just something different. And I, at a very early age, put on masks. And I knew when to put them on, when to take them on, off, when it was safe, when it was not safe. And when you start creating those kinds of patterns as a young kid, you get really good at them the older you get. And so I think I continue to learn that skill in high school and in college and at work. And the challenging thing with that is, for me, it becomes untenable at some point. If you have so many masks you're wearing and you're putting them on and taking them off, my life became super fragmented and compartmentalized, and it was really hard to navigate that. Like, to really answer the question, who am I? Who am I truly at the core of who I am? And I think it was only until a really stressful time when lots of things were happening in my life that I just couldn't hold all those masks on. It's kind of like the image I just got was like The Mask with Jim Carrey, right? Like, this thing would come on and I couldn't keep it on. It would come off and come off, come on and come off. And I just think it became exhausting. And as someone who really cares about authenticity and being my true self, it just became untenable.
I'm impressed that you knew so early on, to not impressed in a like, teach me your ways kind of way, right? But impressed that you were self-aware enough to recognize, like, I have to be this way in this situation and this way in this situation.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, my learned masking was unconscious for a long time. And I have always been really good at reading a room in a really damaging way for myself,
Mm-hmm.
where I didn't think it was okay for me to take up space unless I saw actual space in the room. So I became a helper.
Mm-hmm.
I became a support to my friends. I had a very few friends that were close enough to me that I felt like I could sort of reciprocate needing them when they needed me. I was very often the friend people came to for help. And so like I would shut off my need to help my friend with their need, or family member,
right,
or whoever. Right. And I brought that right into work with me when I grew up and became a professional, was that I saw that I was good at that in the professional world. So I would become the helper. in the professional world by moving into human resources, which felt like a helper role to me. And I created such a strong compartmentalization of my being that I had a work Lauren persona. I had an at-home Lauren persona. I had a friend Lauren persona. I had a showing up to family functions persona, right? Like I had all of these different versions of myself. None of them were lies, right? It wasn't like I was spinning this web of lies and I had to figure out like, who was I honest with? Who was I not honest with? It wasn't really an honesty thing. It was an expression thing for me. And so at work, I was professional Lauren. I still had a sense of humor, but it was very sort of, I'm trying to think of the word, couched is what it was. And with my friends, I didn't want to talk too much about work because I thought it would be a little bit boring for them unless it was like a really exciting, like, oh, this employee threw hot coffee in his boss's face, and then his boss nailed a set of car keys at his head at the rental car company I was working at. Like, that's an exciting story. You want to know more about that. And why did we let that guy come back to work? But the rental car industry is very forgiving. It's hard.
Hold on, wait. So that guy came back to work?
Both guys came back to work.
Tell me more.
I know, right? Yeah, they both got written warnings. But yes, they got to continue to work together. The guy who stole a car and then hit his manager with that car because he was trying to get away, he did not get to keep his job. And he also got arrested. And I had to go to court for that one because it was an employee and a former employee. And this employee's or former employee's defense was that the manager was wearing khaki pants and there wasn't even a scuff on the pants after he hit him. So he couldn't have hit him that hard.
Oh my God. Wow.
See, there are good HR stories out there.
These are good HR stories.
But I digress. So, there's, for me, it was this like expertise in compartmentalizing.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time that I talked to my executive coach, I said something about, well, I'm not going to cry about that because like, I'm not going to cry here. And she said, how come? And I said, well, it's not productive for me to cry. Like, I want to get stuff done. I want to learn about myself and figure out what my next career move is. And on we go. Let's handle the things and be on our way. It's adorable. It's an adorable way to think. And
serves you really well. Totally. Yeah.
Totally serves me. And she said, what is the danger of you crying while we're talking about your career? And I started describing work Lauren and home Lauren and friend Lauren. And I heard how outrageous it sounded.
Right.
And then I said, I still don't want to cry though. And she said, why? And I said, and so many of my clients have said this and then they cry, but so many of my clients have said this. And I said to her, I worry that if I start crying, I will never stop. I still worry about that whenever I cry, that like, this is the time I'll never be able to stop. In fact, I think I said that to you several weeks ago.
No, totally.
We were having a conversation and I said, like, I can't believe I opened this particular area because I'm never going to stop crying about it. I don't think I'm ever going to be okay again.
What's really funny is we then like proceeded to cry like for every session. Every time we connected, both of us were like ugly crying, just like this is sorry to interrupt your story, but this happens with my coach, with you, and my therapist. I get on the call and I just start crying. Like, I don't even start talking, like, but I think what happens is it's a safe space to just show up and be. And when I feel that safety, it just invites this emotion to come out. And so I'm reminiscing of like last week when we were supposed to record this episode and we both got on just like and cried for 45 minutes. Like literally just, I would say something and cry, then you would say something and cry, and I would say something and cry. And it was really fun, y'all. It was a fun 45 minutes.
But seriously, get yourself a John Spears, because to have a friend who you can get on a call with or get face to face with or be on a video call with and just start crying and have space held for you, and then stop crying and be able to hold space for the other one of you is really special. Like, we both get to fall apart at the same time. That to me is the fullest of full unmasking.
Totally.
And I think it's rare. I think it's special. I have relationships with my coaches and my therapist, and my coach and I are also very good friends. And so there's another level, another layer to our relationship. And also, for the most part, it's a little bit, there's a little bit of an imbalance because she's bringing stuff to her coach that she doesn't bring to me. Right. There's an upstream for that. But with my therapist, it's right to tear. Like, I have a Pavlovian response that I see her face on the telehealth screen and the tears start coming. And I'm like, I've been waiting all week to talk to you. Right. So, but again, with a therapist, I don't know anything about her life. Right. Yeah. Like, that's the therapist rule, is it's not about you, therapist. It's about your client. So with a friendship, having that total unmasking and knowing that it's reciprocal is so valuable and so special.
Totally. So, Lauren, why do you think we wear masks?
I think we make assumptions about how things are. You and I talk about what is all the time, and we laugh about it because of that one coach on our leadership team in our coach training who always said, "What is, Lauren?" And it was not always at the right time that was brought up. It was just that coach's go-to question.
Yeah.
But I think that we make assumptions about what is, what people's expectations are of us, what our role in this particular situation is, what our downfall will be if the mask comes off. And we've seen people be punished for unmasking in very public ways. I always think of the crying CEO who unmasked in a very inappropriate way. And if you don't know that story, he was a CEO who let a bunch of people go because he had made bad business decisions. And then he recorded a video of himself crying and saying that basically he was feeling bad for himself because he was letting all of these employees go because he had made bad business decisions. And the backlash was that he was really criticized for pulling out the wrong levels of vulnerability. And you see this a lot with public figures because their lives are just so exposed. But we take that in our heads to apply it to ourselves in completely unrelated capacities. And we say, oh, I can't be vulnerable at work. Look what happened to the crying CEO. But there is a huge difference to me in being upset because something horrible has happened to you personally and sharing that with your coworkers, and being a jerk who's like, feel sad for me because I just impacted X number of people's lives and livelihoods because I made bad decisions deliberately. Right. So I think that we tend to generalize to put ourselves in self-protection mode, to generalize that we better put on a mask in vulnerability, in authenticity, in any kind of need, right? Not even vulnerable need, but like, I didn't used to ask people for help in lifting heavy boxes, right? Like, as any kind of even simple asking for help made me feel like there was a weakness that would be perceived about me. And so I'm a little bit all over the place with this because I think there are so many different reasons why we mask, but I think the ultimate reason is self-protection.
Totally.
We want people to perceive us in a certain way. We want to perceive ourselves in a certain way. And for me, that was always, I want to be perceived as capable, helpful, thoughtful, compassionate, funny, not at all needy.
Yep.
Don't worry about me. I'll worry about you.
Yeah. Yeah.
How about you? Why do you think we come into masking?
My coach, anytime there's an issue that we're talking through, always asks me this question. He's like, what is that threat? And there's a premise, and I forgot the thought leader who came up with this, but they're like three core things that are at threat in our lives. It is security, control, and approval. And I mean, the world is more complex than that, but fundamentally, like the premise is that those are the three main things that we are at threat, and everything kind of comes under those things. And so I think very similar to what you said, when I put on a mask, it's because one of those things is being threatened. My ability to control the situation or the way others perceive me, approval, and security. And I've seen that over and over again when I do that. And so I think, to your point, I was add on to yours and to say, like, when those things are at threat, that's when we mask up. That's when we want to hide. That's when we want to kind of puff our ego so that our ego doesn't feel at threat for something.
I have to tell you, I love approval. Of those three, that's my favorite. To seek and receive approval by being good, right? Like the well-behaved woman kind of persona is my favorite mask. And I think that's like my helper, my capability, like all of that comes into play in seeking approval. And something that was really helpful for me was recognizing that I could offer myself approval, that I could decide what I approved of. And also that being good wasn't the only way to gain approval. When I started to test the waters in showing vulnerability, in asking for support, in backing out of things because I just didn't feel up to it, I also got approval. So because that's my hot button, being fed some level of approval, and a lot of my approval does come internally now, but being fed approval when I demonstrate vulnerability is very rewarding for me. And it encourages me to unmask.
It encourages you to unmask or to mask up?
To unmask, right? So I came from this place where I thought I would only get approval by masking. And as I've tested the waters in unmasking, telling a story about a hard time at work, talking about why being a workaholic wasn't a badge of honor, talking about my chronic illnesses, all of those kinds of things, I would like crack open the door and say something small, and I would be surprised to find that there were levels of approval there that I wasn't expecting. That's why I had the mask on, because I didn't think people would approve of anything but good girl me.
Right.
So there is, for me, reward in unmasking instead of the punishment I expect.
Right.
Yeah. What do you think?
As you were speaking, I don't know what I think about that, but as you were speaking, I kind of got this like punch in the gut, aha thing happened. This like light bulb went off. And it was anytime we seek to outsource security, approval, or control, we put on masks. And so when we begin to find those things within ourselves, and for me, it's interesting. Yours is approval, mine is security. I love security. I love the known. I love feeling safe. And anytime I outsource that to another person, to a situation, I inherently go to my masks and put them on very quickly. And the more and more I've been able to find security within myself, even when there's chaos, which is happening a lot in the world, also in my world, I have found that I am much more adept at navigating those circumstances authentically and maskless than when I find that outside of myself.
And what's the third one? Security, approval, and
Control.
control. It's
I like
funny.
all three, actually.
I love control. I keep forgetting the third one. I keep forgetting the C. I in my head, I'm like, it's A and C and S. And so approval, security. And so clearly control is my hot button one. So I'm like,
Because you
throw
want to
that
forget
out of
it.
my
You're
head.
like...
I don't need that one. Oh, it's funny how we react. So how did you come to deciding that you were done with the level of masking you were living in?
In coaching, we know that change really only, we know that in every action we have or circumstance, there's a cost and there's a payoff to the way that we choose to do things. And it was when I got really honest about the cost, what this was costing me. Yeah, I was having a payoff. Yeah, I was getting people to see me in a certain way, which was like not the way I actually was. And it was only until I really took an honest accounting of the cost in my life and what it was doing to me and the impact of that, that I saw that it was outweighing the payoff. And that's when I finally had the courage to make a change. I have been really fascinated this season of my life with courage. And a lot of people say personally to me, I have a lot of courage. I never really thought about that for myself. And I've just been fascinated with that because I see other people, and what I thought was like a very normal response to things, other people don't have that similar response. And so I've just been fascinated with like, why am I courageous? You know, it's one of the things that I don't normally say great things about myself, but I think that's one of the things that I am like, I really love about myself, that I am courageous and that I have courage, and that while fear may be very much a part of my life, there's also bravery and courage there. And so I think for me, it was like, one, seeing the cost and tapping into courage and doing something even though I was scared. I think that is, for me, that was the recipe for change in my life. How about you?
My hot button word has always been resilience. And resilience because of need, right? Like I worked a lot, and so I had to bring all the energy. I got sick, so I had to double the energy I was bringing, right? And like power through and keep going after doctors until I got some answers. I broke both of my shoulders. I got myself up off the floor to a phone so I could call an ambulance and blah, 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 right? And so I've always been sort of known for my resilience. And it was a badge of honor because I felt like I could overcome anything. What I learned was that resilience didn't have to be a mask, right? And I used it as like, I'm okay. Let's take care of you. I'll always be okay. Let's see what I can help you with. And so it became a mask because I wasn't willing to tell anybody that it was actually hard. Who wouldn't know that living with chronic illness and barely being able to stay awake, like, who wouldn't know that's hard, right? Who wouldn't know that breaking both of your shoulders is really hard? It's like, I don't recommend it for anybody. But I always kept this like, I'm fine, right? I'm okay. Don't worry about me kind of thing. But also, can you get that itch on my eyebrow? Because I can't reach my eyebrow with broken shoulders. But what I learned was resilience can also come into play in unmasking. There's like a great resilience demonstrated when you're willing to get vulnerable, when you're willing to ask for and receive support, and not just one time, not then like run away from that person in embarrassment because they helped you with something, which was my initial response to demonstrating my resilience through vulnerability. So for me, you talked about, cost and payoff. For me, the cost of wearing masks all the time was that I had this very limited spectrum of capacity for experiencing all emotions. I was happy. I got sad, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like you can even hear in my voice that those are sort of like weak, watery, middle of the road emotions. Now, when something great happens, I can really experience that it's great. And when I dig into the hard stuff, I can really dig all the way in. And so I'm at a point where like, I'm pretty done masking. I'm not perfect about it. I don't think any of us are, but it's worthwhile to me to let people know who I am.
Yeah. That's so powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. John, if you can believe this, we are out of time.
What the Halloween spooky dookies?
I know.
What? How is this possible all the time?
I know. And we have an announcement for our listeners, which is that this is also our season 1 finale, which makes us both laugh because season 1 has been 35 episodes and almost a year and a half long. We just did not know when to take a break. And we have decided that now is the time. We have unmasked. We have talked about all kinds of different topics: vulnerability, kindness, facts and stories, the pressure to perform, boundaries. I mean, like every topic that we've talked about has been so much fun and so amazing and eye-opening for both of us, like in the middle of the conversation. So if you haven't listened to the whole season yet, we encourage you to spend the fall and winter giving it a listen, and we'll be back after the new year. And both John and I are available to connect with you on social media. We're both on LinkedIn and Instagram. And we would love to hear from you. And we would love to hear during the break what topics you'd like to hear about when we return after the new year. Thank you so much for being with us, for listening, and for sharing this with your friends. We'll see you next time.
Bye. We're so grateful you decided to be with us during this episode. Subscribe, rate, and share this podcast with your friends and colleagues, and join us next time for more Real Talk.